Hi and welcome back to this channel, and today in this video we are going to be talking about our carousel with Bootstrap version 5. So how you can use the owl carousel with Bootstrap version 5. So just for the information, the owl carousel is a jQuery plugin that allows you to create nice and responsive carousel sliders on your web pages. So it's actually a plugin you can download from the internet and then include certain of its files into your web project, and in order to be able to create responsive and nice carousel sliders. Okay, so my project here, I'm going to be showing you examples on how you can actually use this owl carousel plugin. And so my project is pretty much organized as usual. I have the various folders here: CSS, fonts, images, JavaScript, and I have my two files, index.html and then the style.css file. Okay, so make sure you have the Bootstrap here and the style.css. So I'm not definitely going to be using the font awesome, but I just put it there. Okay, so now let's directly go to downloading the Owl Carousel plugin. So as I said, it's a plugin, it's a jQuery plugin that you can download from the internet. So in order to download that, you simply have to come on Google here and then write Owl Carousel like this, press enter, and then click on the first link here. Then it's going to lead you to the official website of the Owl Carousel plugin. So you have two options. You either can install or include the Owl Carousel into your web project by including the CDN link, or you can actually download the Owl Carousel on your local computer. So that's what I did. I clicked on this button here to download the Owl Carousel on my computer. Or you can also come here on the navigation bar. You have the download link here. When you click on that, it's going to download the folder. So let's do that. Okay, when I click here, you will see that I have the Owl Carousel downloaded on my computer. So once it's downloaded, you have to extract the file, and then you get this file like this. When you click in here, you have different folders. So what we are actually going to be using in this video, these files are contained in this docs folder. When I click here, and I have to click on assets and on our carousel, and in here I have the JavaScript files, and when I click on assets again, I have the CSS files. So throughout this video, I'm going to be showing you how and at what time to use each of these files in your project. Okay, so that's actually it. So now the first scenario we are going to look at is going to be on how, if you want to create like a basic Owl carousel on your web page, which file should you include on your web on your web project. Okay, let me come back to this folder. So if you want to create a basic Owl carousel, you have to definitely include either of these two CSS files, owl.carousel.css, or you can include the owl.carousel.minified.css. So you simply have to copy that and come to your web project directory. So if it is a CSS file, you can include it into your CSS folder here. Like I did, I simply paste it and replace because I already copied it. So when you replace, you have the owl.carousel.minified.css file inside your web project. And the next step is going to be to actually link it to your project. So you're going to link it pretty much the same way you link your CSS file. Okay, so write style sheet here, and then href, you say css / and that was owl carousel.minified.css like this. okay, and then save. So you have included this owl.carousel.css file. And as I was saying, this file is actually required and should always be included whenever you want to use the Owl Carousel plugin in your web project. So it has to be included before including any other file in your web project. And if I come back to this, okay, this folder we downloaded, you can see the owl.theme.default or the owl.theme.default.minified files. These files, we could also add them, but they are not compulsory. They are just optional. So I'm going to show you later on in the video when you actually can add these to these files. And it's definitely going to be whenever we want to add like navigation controls to our carousel slider, or we want to add pagination to the slider. But as I said, this first scenario we are going to be doing here now is going to be on how to create a very basic carousel on a web page. Okay, so after including the carousel CSS file, which is the owl.carousel.minified.css, we now have to include the JavaScript files. Okay, so the first one is going to be the jQuery file. Okay, the jQuery files, because we say that our carousel is a jQuery plugin. So you definitely need to include some jQuery in your web project. So the same thing, if you want to actually get the jQuery file, what you have to do is to come on Google and type jQuery. Download. It's going to lead you to the jQuery website. When you click on the link, it's going to lead you to this website, and then you can download your jQuery file. So you click here on this link, there you can see that you have the code for your jQuery file. All you have to do is simply copy this and then create a file and paste the code in there, and then include that jQuery inside your web project. So as for me, I already included the jQuery inside my web project, okay, and I put it inside my JS folder. So if I come here, there you can see I have the jQuery file in here. So all I need to do is to include the jQuery inside my HTML file. So I'll say js/jQuery. This, and that's it. So that's the first JavaScript file you need in order to get your Owl Carousel working. Then the second file is going to be the Owl Carousel.minified.js. Okay, if you come back to the Owl Carousel folder we downloaded from the internet, when you come back here, then you can see that we have owl.carousel.minified.javascript. Okay, so this is actually the file you will need to copy and come back to your project. Inside your JavaScript folder, paste that in here. So I'm simply going to say replace because I already pasted. So there I have my JavaScript, and then I need to come back to my HTML file and actually include that script here. I will say source JS, then owl.carousel.minified.js, like this. So this is the setup you need to put in place. So always remember, you need to have your CSS. This file is actually required. Okay, the owl.carousel.minified.css, and then you have to include your JavaScript, your jQuery.js, and also your owl.carousel.minified.js inside your HTML file. So now we are going to write some HTML code in order to show you actually how this works. Okay, so all you need to do is to wrap your tags inside the container element that contains the class Owl Carousel. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So since we are using Bootstrap, I'm going to say div class, and I will say container like this. And in here, I'm going to create another div. I will say class. I'm going to give this class Owl Carousel like this. So this class, how carousel, is actually mandatory to apply the proper styles that come from the owl.carousel.minified.css file. So if you want default navigation controls like the buttons or the pagination dots, we will have to include the owl.theme, that default, that minified, and also add another class in here. But I'm going to show you that later on. Okay, so once we have done that, we can now add some more divs or some more tags. So I'm simply going to say class. This class, I'm going to call it background bg info. This, and I'll say your content, something like that. Right, so I'm simply going to copy and paste, and here I will say maybe danger info, danger, and danger, like this. Okay, so now this is the HTML code we have written. Okay, so let me come to my project folder here, and let me say that I want to open this into my browser. So when I open, nothing is showing, even though we have added our HTML code in here. So nothing is showing is because we have not added any option to the plugin. So we need to write a little bit of JavaScript in order to trigger the owl carousel class that we put in here. Okay, so we need the JavaScript to actually make this HTML code to run and show some writing on our web page. Okay, so what we have to do is we need to call the owl carousel initialization function, and then our carousel is going to be ready. So we have two options. We can either simply write a script like this, and inside the script, we are going to write the code, the JavaScript code that we need. It's like we will say document and ready function. And in here, we say that our carousel, and then semicolon like this, and save. So this is actually the initialization of our owl carousel function. So this is the code you need to actually write. So now if we come back to our web page and refresh, so we need to change this. So we'll say owl carousel like this, and save. When we come back to our web page and refresh, there you can see that we are having our various divs showing on the web page. Let me simply increase the margin top here. I will say 5, like this. All right, so now here you can see that we are having, this is actually a carousel made up of divs that are having different background colors. So I can use my mouse to actually scroll through these carousel items. All right, so this is really a basic carousel item you can use. So you always have to make sure that you have this initialization, or else your carousel is not going to work. Okay, so now we are going to try to embellish our carousel. Okay, as you can see here, it's simply some divs, and then we have put some text and some background color. It's not really nice. So I'm going to use a card class to actually include some images and some text, so that we can see really how this looks like. All right, so in here, I'm gonna I will remove all of this, like this, and then like this. So inside, I'm going to create another div. So I'll say div class, I'll say card, all right? And in the card here, I'm going to say img source. I'll say images, background like this. And I'm also going to say div class card body like this, and h5 class, and I'll say card title. So I'll simply say image title, and here I'll say your description will come, and then save. So now I'm simply going to repeat this like this. I'm going to add a class here in the images tag. I will say class image That will be card image top like this. The same here will be card image top. So I will copy. Wait, also need to change this. Instead of background info, I'm simply going to say margin start 2 and margin end 2. So this is actually just going to put some margin. And as you know, these are Bootstrap classes. I'm adding margin between these carousel items. Okay, so now I can copy and paste as much as I want. Okay, so I'm simply going to change the images. So up here, I'm going to say background 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 like this. So that's it. So now let me come to my web page and then refresh. So now, as you can see, my cards are not having the same size. Okay, when I scroll, you can see some images are too large, some other images are too small. So one way to change that is to add some CSS code. So I will come to my CSS code here. So this is just some generic code for the body. I am going to add a code. So in order to make all my images, my card images, to have the same height. So if you recall, I added a class here, card image top. So that's class. I'm going to use that in order to apply some properties to all my images. And I guess this is going to fix that up. And I'm going to say height. Let me say 40 VH and width 100%, and object fit will be covered. Okay, so let me come and refresh. Ta-da! There you can see all my images are having the same height. And as you can also see, it's actually a carousel of images. You can use your mouse to scroll through the images. So when you drag your mouse, it takes you to the next image or the previous image. So this is actually how you create a basic carousel. And as you can see, there is no navigation control here. There's no button where I can click on in order to take me to the next carousel item. But I can use my mouse to actually drag me to the next item. And we can also add some options to the plugin in the JavaScript part of our code here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to create a JavaScript file where I'm going to paste all this code, because I just don't want to put it in the same file as the HTML, the index.html file. So I'm going to click on my JavaScript like this and then create another JavaScript file that I'm going to call script.js. Press enter. So I have it here. All I'm going to do is copy. I'm actually going to cut. I'm simply going to cut this. When I cut, come to script.js, paste it like this. Okay, let me remove this. And in script.js, I actually can also remove this portion of the code like this. Okay. So now we are okay. So as I was saying, we can add some options to the plugin. We can add some options like the autoplay option that will let the carousel to autoplay. So what I'm going to do is add an option called autoplay like this, and I will simply say true. So this autoplay is actually make the carousel to scroll through the items without any human intervention. Okay, and let me save, come and refresh. I will add autoplay hover pause. This one will also be true, and then autoplay timeout 100, save. Okay, this is not working because I actually need to include the script like this. So I'll say source.js, and so I called it script.js like this. Okay, so now it's included in our HTML file. So when I come and refresh, there you can see my carousel. And as you can see, it is scrolling by itself automatically, okay, without me using my mouse or anything else. So that's actually some of the options you can add in your JavaScript function here in order to autoplay the owl carousel. So now let's say that you want to add some navigation controls button or some pagination to the carousel. What do you need to do? So as I was telling you at the beginning, what you have to do is actually to add this file called owl.theme.default or owl.theme.default.minified.css. Okay, so that's actually what we're going to do. I'll simply copy, and here in my CSS I will paste it. I will simply replace because I already pasted it, and then I need to come into my HTML head, and I'm going to link like this. That will be style sheet, href, css, how that theme, that default, that minified like this. Yeah, now you are good to go. And that's not the only thing you need to do. The other thing you need to do is actually to add another class here. Just beside the owl carousel class, you need to add the owl theme class. So that's something you definitely need to add. Okay, so once you have added that, let me come to my web page and refresh. You can see that we are having the pagination here. Okay, pagination, when I click, it takes me to the next item in my carousel. Okay, so but the navigation controls are not showing. So to make them actually show, I need to add some options to the plugin in the JavaScript code. So in here, what I'm going to say, for example, that will be items. So items here is going to make reference to the number of carousel items to show in a carousel, actually, on the web page. So I'll say carousel items 4 and save. So now let me come here. You will see that instead of having 3 carousel items, we're going to have 4 carousel items. Okay, so now we are having 4 carousel items because I specified it here. And I'm going to say nav true. So this is going to make reference to the navigation controls buttons, the previous and the next button. All right, and I will say loop like this. So the loop here is going to loop the carousel from the last item to the first item, so over and over again, because we've said that loop here must be true. So now let me come and refresh. Okay, so when we refresh, you can see here we are having the navigation buttons. It's kind of small, we can see that, but we have it down here. So when you click, it takes you to the previous. When I click here, it takes me to the next item in my carousel. All right, so we still need to actually style this carousel. We can actually style the pagination button dots here. We can also style these navigation controls button. In order to do that, we are going to use the CSS file, and in the CSS file we are going to add some code. So the first one is going to be owl, I would say previous, okay, like this, and I would say left will be minus 30 pixels like this. So the same thing for owl next, but here I would say right minus 30 pixel, and then down here I would say owl that previous comma class owl next. In here I would say position absolute, so this is going to take it to the top, and I would say top 90 pixels. So now when I come here, so as you can see, we are having these buttons here. We can't actually see them very clearly because they are too small, so I need to increase the size. That's what I'm going to do. So I'll say owl prev like this, span, comma, that owl hyphen next, span, and I would say font size. Which size can I give to that? I'll say 80 pixels, and the color I would say black. Okay, so when I come here, there you can see now we have the buttons, the navigation control buttons. So when I click, it takes to the next item, and it's also looping because we specify that loop is true. Okay, I can also add some more CSS styling. I will simply say our theme, comma, that our hyphen nav, now say class, how like this. On hover, I want the background to be transparent. Yeah, so that's it. Come and refresh. So guys, this is a very basic owl carousel. You can add some more CSS to it. And as you can see here, based on the last CSS style I added, when I hover on the navigation control, the background is becoming transparent. Okay, so that's actually it. Now the next thing I want to show you is on how to add lazy loading effect to your plugin. So lazy loading is actually a practice of delaying or the load or the initialization of resources or objects until they are needed in order to improve the performance and to save resources. So briefly, it's actually delaying the load time of your images on your web project, on your web page, for example. So I'm going to show you how to do just that using the Carousel plugin. Okay, so what you need to do is actually come to your HTML file here, okay, and you simply need to change some few stuff. So instead of writing src here source, you add data hyphen, and the class here you will say lazy, no, you will say how lazy, and then save. So you will do the same thing everywhere, and how lazy like this. So I'll simply copy, and down here as well. So here that will be lazy, no, how lazy. So copy, then paste. All right, and then I will just save that. So when I come to my web page here and then refresh, you can notice that the images are not loading anymore. Okay, so we need to add some options to the plugin in order to make sure that the images are loaded whenever we refresh the web page. So the option we need to add, we're going to do that in the script.js file we created, and we were simply going to say lazy load like this, true. When we refresh, all right. So as you can see, the images are now taking some time to load whenever we refresh our web page. So the lazy loading effect, as I was saying at the beginning, it delays the load time of an item or a resource. So now we applied it on the images. So that's why when we refresh the web page, the images are taking some time to actually load and then show on our web page. We can also add some more options. For example, we could say margin 5, padding maybe 5 as well, and stage padding maybe 5. All right, so when we refresh, we will still have the same lazy loading effect, images that are loading with a little bit of delay, a slight delay in their loading time. All right, so that's actually how to add lazy loading to your web project using the owl carousel. So one thing that is also possible that I also need to talk to you about is the possibility of making your owl carousel responsive. Okay, so if you want to make your owl carousel responsive, all you need to do is to add an option to your plugin like this. You need to come to your script.js file and simply say responsive, semicolon, open the brackets, and inside the brackets, you need to specify the screen sizes and then specify the number of items, carousel items that need to be showing based on the screen size that you have specified. Let's say, for example, I say 0, and so that means that if the screen size is 0 pixels, I want only one item to show, and I don't want the paginations. So I will simply say dots here will be false like this. And I can also precise another screen size. I would say from 485 pixels, I would say the number of carousel items will be 2, and dots pagination will be false. I need to put the comma here. All right, comma, another, so from 725 going, I would say the number of items will be 3, and that will also be false. I don't want any dots or pagination to show. The next screen size will be 960, and that will be items. 4, that's false, like this. And then I can say the last screen size I want to define will be 1200, and here I want 5 items to show, and I can pretty much say that I want a dot to be true, like this. So from a screen size of 1200 going, it's going to be showing 5 items, and the dots will definitely be showing. So this is actually to make the carousel, this is going to make the carousel responsive. So now let me show you. When I refresh, now we are having 500 items on our screen. This is because we specified here that when we have a screen size of 1200 and up going, we need to have 5 items, character items showing. You'll see that if I say 4 here and then refresh, we will have 4 items here. And this is also responsive because when I reduce the size of my browser, my screen browser, you can see that based on what we specified to be the screen sizes here, the number of items, carousel items showing will also be picking from what we specified in the options. So the more I am reducing the size of my browser window, then you can see that we are having different numbers of items on the screen. Okay, so this is actually how you make your carousel responsive. So you simply need to put the responsive option here and then define the various screen sizes and the number of items and the other properties you want to apply based on the screen size. So for more information about this responsive function of the OWL carousel, you can find more information on the OWL carousel official website. So this is about the responsive function. All right, so the next thing we can also look at is on how to add some animation to your carousel item. Okay, it is possible to add animation and transition to your carousel item. So one thing to note here is that the animations or the animate functions will only work with one item and only in certain browsers that support perspective properties. Okay, so we are going to change a little bit of our code. So let's come back to the HTML part of our code, and in here I'm going to add some styling. So I will say style like this, and width that will be 800 pixels. Okay, and I will remove the lazy loading. So everywhere we put data and how lazy like this, I'll simply remove that. So once I have removed the lazy loading code we added in our HTML file, we also need to remove all the options that we added based on the lazy loading effect. So I can simply remove that. And also, as we said, the animation only works on one carousel item. All right. So I will say items here will be 1, and I will remove the responsive option as well. Save. So one important thing we need to actually, let me first come here and refresh and see what happens. So now when we refresh, we're having a single carousel item here. But the most important thing in order to add an animation to your carousel slider. Okay, so when we have done that, we can come back to the script.js and we will simply add an animation, and we say animate out, and we say fade out, then save. So when we come and refresh, you'll see that when we click on next, so it fades out and takes us to the next carousel item. So the animation is actually working. And one other important thing to note here is that the fade out value is the only built-in CSS animation style. But if we want other additional CSS animations, we can use another plugin called animate.css. Okay, so we can actually use animate.css together with our carousel in order to have tons of different animations on our carousel items. So in order to get the animate.css file, you can go on the internet. You can also go on the carousel website directly. I will simply show you our carousel. Okay, so when you come here, you click on demo and then scroll down, you have animate here. So this is going to tell you how to add animation. And so you also have the link here, and you say download animate.css if you want to add more animations. Okay, you want to get more animations to add to your carousel, you can click here. It will take you to another website. But in this project, you can also, instead of going on the internet, you can simply get the animate.css file from the folder we downloaded from the internet. Okay, so when you come to the our carousel folder we downloaded, when you come to assets here, instead of clicking on our carousel, you simply have to click on CSS folder. There you have the animate.css file. So what you're gonna do is to simply copy that, come to your project and paste it. Okay, I will simply say replace and paste it, and then you will simply need to come and include that animate.css into your HTML head and href. So we'll say css animate.css like this. Okay, so once this is added, then you can add the animations. So now you are ready to extend your our carousel slider with new transitions and animations. So one way to add an animation is to come on in your script.js file and always make sure to add an animate in option where you're going to specify an animation that you need to put. So as for me here, I'm going to choose to add a flip in Y animation and then comma, and you also need to add an animate out option, and here I'm going to say zoom out down like this. Now when I come to my web browser and refresh, so now if you will see that when I click in on the next button, I'm having kind of animation on my web project. Okay, so when I click on the next button, let me simply remove the autoplay like this and save. Come back to refresh. So when I click, you see the animation, the transition actually between the previous and the next carousel item. Okay, so you can actually put a lot of animation here. If you want to know more about which animation to actually put in here, you can go to the animate.css website. This is the website, and here you have the different animations and transitions. For example, if I say bounce here, as you can see, it's showing you what this animation actually does. All right, so the one we chose was we said flip in Y. Okay, yeah, that's it, flip in Y. There's flip in X as well. Let's say, for example, we change this to flip in X and save. We'll come and refresh. So this is how it's showing. So the animation in is doing the flipping X, and the out, the animation out is doing the zoom out down. So guys, this was actually it about how to use the owl carousel with the Bootstrap 5. And as we could see, you could do a lot of things with that. And in the next video, I'm going to be talking about the animate.css plugin a little bit more further, explaining a lot of stuff about that plugin. And I'm also going to be creating some website using Bootstrap and then the owl carousel in order to show you in real life how to build the website using the Bootstrap library and then the owl carousel plugin. So I hope this video would be informative and you would enjoy all the information. And thanks for viewing. So let's meet in the next video.